You've tried to stop thinking about it. You've moved on with your day, started other tasks, told yourself it doesn't matter anymore. But the memory is still there, playing in the background like a song you never asked to hear. It's not a failure of willpower or focus. Your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do, and it has nothing to do with whether you want to remember or not. We think of memory as something we control, a mental filing cabinet where we store what matters and discard what doesn't. But that's not how it works. The moments that stick aren't always the ones we choose. They're the ones our brain decided were important, and its criteria are completely different from ours. You remember the awkward comment you made 3 years ago at a work meeting. You remember the way someone's face changed when you said the wrong thing. You remember the email you shouldn't have sent, the conversation that went badly, the small moment of rejection that no one else even noticed. These aren't memories you want, but they remain sharper than most of the things you've tried to memorize on purpose. The common explanation is that negative memories stick because we're dwelling on them, that if we just stopped replaying them, they'd fade away. But research suggests something different. The brain doesn't treat all experiences equally. It prioritizes anything that carried emotional weight, especially if that emotion was tied to social threat, uncertainty, or unpredictability. This happens because your brain is constantly scanning for patterns that might help you survive future situations. Not physical survival, but social and psychological survival. When something went wrong, when you felt embarrassed or exposed or misunderstood, your brain flagged that moment as significant. It encoded it more deeply, connected it to more neural pathways, made sure you wouldn't forget it. The stronger the emotional response, the more permanent the memory became. That's why you can't remember what you had for lunch last Tuesday, but you remember exactly how you felt when someone corrected you in front of others. The lunch didn't register as important. The correction did. Your brain wasn't interested in the neutral. It was interested in what might happen again. And here's the part that makes it worse. The act of trying not to think about something actually strengthens the memory. When you tell yourself to forget, you're activating the exact neural pathway you're trying to avoid. You're rehearsing it. Every time you push it away, you're reinforcing it. The memory gets tagged again, reactivated, reconsolidated. It becomes more accessible, not less. This isn't a flaw in how you're managing your thoughts. It's how memory works. Research shows that suppression doesn't weaken a memory. It often does the opposite, because the brain doesn't distinguish between remembering something and trying not to remember it. Both require you to access the memory itself, and every access is a form of practice. Think about the last time you replayed a conversation in your head, the one where you said something you regret. You weren't trying to remember it. You were trying to understand it, to rewrite it, to figure out what you should have said instead. But each time you did that, you strengthened the original memory. You gave it more emotional context, more detail, more significance. You made it harder to forget. Now think about something you actually wanted to memorize. A name, a fact, something for work or school. You repeated it a few times, maybe wrote it down, then moved on. But it didn't stick the same way, because it didn't carry the same emotional charge. Your brain didn't flag it as something worth protecting. It was just information, and information without emotional relevance is treated as disposable. The uncomfortable truth is that your brain isn't optimized for your happiness. It's optimized for pattern recognition and threat detection. It holds on to what hurt because pain is useful data. Embarrassment, rejection, failure, these are experiences your brain wants you to learn from, so it keeps them available. It doesn't matter that you've already learned the lesson or that the situation will never happen again. The memory remains because the system doesn't know when to stop. You might think this means you're stuck with every uncomfortable memory forever. That's not quite true. Memories do fade, even the emotional ones. But they fade through a process that has nothing to do with effort. They fade when they stop being reactivated, when you stop trying to suppress them, stop analyzing them, stop giving them attention. The less you interact with a memory, the weaker its trace becomes over time. But here's the paradox. You can't forget something by trying to forget it. The only way to weaken a memory is to let it exist without reacting to it, to notice it when it comes up and not engage, not suppress, not analyze, not fight. Just let it pass. That's not advice. That's just how the mechanism works. This also doesn't mean every memory you want to forget will eventually disappear. Some are encoded too deeply. Some are tied to experiences that reshaped how you see yourself or the world. Those might stay with you not because you're holding on to them, but because they became part of the structure of how you think. That's not a personal failing. That's what it means to be shaped by experience. And it doesn't mean you should try to avoid emotional experiences to keep your memory clean. The brain's bias toward emotional memory exists for a reason. It's how you learn not to touch the stove twice, how you developed social awareness, how you built a sense of what's safe and what isn't. The system isn't broken. It's just not designed for comfort. What this does mean is that the memories you carry aren't a reflection of what you care about. They're a reflection of what your brain decided to preserve, often in moments when you had no control over the decision. You're not remembering because you're stuck in the past. You're remembering because that's how memory works. The system doesn't ask for permission. You might notice this most clearly in quiet moments, when you're trying to fall asleep, or sitting alone, or waiting for something to load on your screen. That's when the memories surface. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because your brain is less occupied. There's space, and the memory fills it. It's not intrusive. It's just there, doing what it was designed to do. The version of memory you were promised, the one where you keep what matters and discard what doesn't, isn't real. Memory is selective, but not in the way you'd choose. It keeps what felt significant in the moment, regardless of whether that significance was positive or negative. And significance, for your brain, is almost always tied to emotion, especially the kind that makes you feel exposed or uncertain. So, when you remember what you want to forget, you're not doing something wrong. You're experiencing the natural outcome of a system that prioritizes survival over preference. It doesn't care what you want to remember. It cares what it thinks you need to know. And sometimes, what it thinks you need to know is the thing you'd most like to leave behind.